I would really like to invite us to rethink some of the things our parents told us. So the first one that comes to mind for me is a saying that we might have heard as kids, as adults around us told us that we should only speak when spoken to. Only speak when you're spoken to. Now, on one hand, having had a child, having been around children, I get why some adults might tell us that, because as children, we certainly don't always have the greatest filters about what to say in certain social situations, what's okay to talk about at the dinner table, and what's okay to scream and yell about or tell people about what's going on in our household. Totally understand that we tend to blurt as kids. But what I also recognize is that as we are more mature adults, hopefully more mature, we begin to evaluate some of these things we heard so much of the time in our life and understand that while the adults around us had good intentions, those sayings that we might have lived by for a long time don't always serve us in living our best life. For example, in this one, if we only speak when we're spoken to, we might grow up and continue as an adult to be disconnected from our own voice. We might have learned to bypass as we've wanted to say something, wanted to speak out about something, wanted to express ourselves, wanted to connect. We might have come into a habit of pushing that voice down out of following that advice or input that we got. And so that pushing down of that voice, I believe, can literally at times be a part of why we feel depressed. We're literally depressing ourselves. So we don't speak our truth, for example. We don't speak out loud. We don't share ourselves in some of our most important and intimate relationships because we've learned to bypass our voice. We've learned to not respond to the stimulus going on around us because we should only speak when spoken to. And so it's an important thing to take a look at and invite ourselves to ask, is that true for me now as an adult? And there's a deeper thing that begins to happen too that's really important. And it's part of why we spiritual seekers are on such a journey. It's the journey towards our innermost self. So what can happen if we only speak when spoken to, and we've got this voice inside of us that's expressing to us, that's guiding us, that's inviting us into our greatest yet to be, is that out of that habit of pushing down, not listening, not acknowledging. And of course, then we also have all the other things that distract us, like our phones and television and things going on in the world, all sorts of things that have habituated us to not listening deeply to ourselves. We begin at times to find that we're not as in touch with our innermost voice. Now, I admit that inner voice can be so darn irritating, because it is a voice that often invites us into some of the greatest challenges that we might face. I've shared many times about that inner voice that spoke to me when I was 18 years old, inviting me into this life that I'm in now of ministry, and how I pushed it down and turned away from it, did not speak back to it. And of course, if I were to speak back to it, I thought that was crazy. And what I did, I guess I really did speak back to it in all honesty. What I spoke back to it was, "You're crazy. I'm not listening to you," and pushed it away and pushed it away and pushed it away and pushed it away. And the whole time I was pushing it away, it wasn't like I lived some deeply dissatisfying, unhappy life. I just always felt like there was something missing, like I wasn't always on the right track, that I was in a search mode. And because I was a young person, I just thought that was normal. But what I began to notice is that not listening to that inner voice took its toll on my spiritual life, on my body, on my soul, on my essence. And so eventually there came this moment where it got so loud, it literally shouted at me. And I finally turned towards it and listened. And I spoke back to it. I was spoken to and I spoke back. And when I finally spoke back, I said, okay, I hear you. I say yes. And my whole life changed. Everything changed because with that clarity, there was that ability then to move forward in my life, making decisions, making choices, sharing very vulnerably with people. I had this inner voice and it's telling me that I'm supposed to be a minister. And watching as people around me said, wow, yeah, that feels right. How wonderful. Congratulations. Yay for you. Glad you got the clarity. And my life began to unfold. That was the most profound example for me of finally listening to my own inner voice in such a profound way. But it continued on from then. As I walked through the rest of my life, what I noticed is that the more that voice spoke to me and the more I spoke back to it, the more it encouraged it. And I know this can sound crazy to people. What, you spoke to your inner voice? That's crazy. But it's a very specific kind of listening. Speak when spoken to is what I began to tell myself. Listen and speak when spoken to by that profound inner voice. It has guided me in profound and powerful ways. And so I would say that being willing to listen and speak back when spoken to by that inner voice or by the voices of guidance that are around us at times, as circumstance, conditions, synchronicity shows up and we see it and we speak back to it, this is a part of spiritual maturity. While it might have been a part of human immaturity in our childhood, spiritual maturity is the willingness to understand that there is this centeredness within me that is always guiding me, speaking to me, and inviting me forward in my life. And so the more I listened to it, the more it spoke. And the more it spoke, the more I felt guided and on my right path. Now, did everything that it told me to do always come up smelling like roses? No. But what I noticed is that the invitation has served me in ways that are beyond anything I could ever express. So how do we do this? I think we do it in the most mundane ways of our everyday life. We get into our car and we listen to that inner voice as it invites us to go a different path than we were thinking of going. We make our day start out with possibly some spiritual experiences that allow us to go within and just be available for that inner voice to guide us. We may even ask it questions like, what is it that I most need to pay attention to today? What is it that is calling to me today? What is it inspiring me today? And listen and develop a relationship that is speaking when spoken to with that inner light within us. We sit down for a meal and we not only allow ourselves to speak a blessing, but we listen to that inner voice about what is in front of us that is most beneficial for our body temple. We allow ourselves to enter into sacred relationships and conversations, even challenging ones, with our willingness to be guided, be listening to that inner voice as it guides us to speak when spoken to from inside of our beingness and speak our love and our willingness to work out conflicts or to collaborate or to share our love. And we allow ourselves to let our voice be expressed with the things we want to say to people, our loving feelings and thoughts, our creative ideas, our sharing of ourselves in the most profound way. This week, I invite us to speak when spoken to, and to create ways where we are spoken to from that sacred place within.
So what an honor it is to be right here, right now, present in this moment, and offering this prayer of wholeness for all of us as a global community. So for anyone who is present here watching at any moment, let's just collect together. Take a moment to go inside and receive this prayer. So it is with sacred awareness that I connect right here, right now, to that infinite power, to the divine in whichever way we assign to that, whether it's the name, whether it's the angel or the fairy, or we recognize that there is that face of that child that reminds us of that divinity. Connecting fully right here, right now, to that which is higher, to that infinite power. I call it sacred wholeness right here, right now. And so in this wholeness, I am a part of it, and everyone is a part of this wholeness, of this natural essence or a divine birthright that is already incarnated as the expression of every soul in this planet. And so therefore it is in this place of knowing, recognizing, and unifying with this infinite power as wholeness, it is in this state of knowing, fully realizing that I am whole, perfect, and complete, I declare this into being for all of us, for everyone, for any person who is present right here, right now. For all of us, I declare wholeness as the divinity that expresses fully through each action, through each thought, through everywhere in which we interact in the world. I declare that the body of our affairs is one that demonstrates that truth, that we are a whole being regardless of any appearance. If there's any discord, if there is any illness, if there's any separation, if there is anything that reflects something else that is not of the likeness of wholeness, of unity, of the divine nature, I know that right here, right now, by the power of this prayer, of this word, is eradicated. Because the truth stands alone, and everything that is not of the truth falls away with ease and grace. So I know a healing nature within every person is right here, right now, rising to the top. And in that space, we remember together that we are whole, that we are fulfilled, that we are complete in this moment. And in gratitude for knowing this truth, I just release, trusting and knowing the divine intelligence is reflected exactly as it is meant to be. The truth, the love, and the wholeness that is revealed perfectly and completely in physical form. I release now in gratitude, and I just let it be, and so it is.